Hello every pony and welcome to Brony FanFics. Today, Crest of Equestria, Chapter 14. Last time, the main six and their counterparts got to know each other a little bit better, and I think they got Fluttershy to the hospital or whatever it was. And yeah, so we're taking off from there. So, Cross Equestria, Chapter 14, Inoculation. So, how exactly does this stuff work anyway? Twilight asked. She, Tick-Tock, Rarity and Lockwood stood carefully around a small sofa in the checkpoint's reading room. The walls were lined with books of every size and genre, enough to threaten at distracting Twilight from more important things. Things such as Fluttershy lying limp on the sofa they all stood around, wrapped in Lockwood's jacket as before. Things like the large needle that Pewter was carefully holding with his magic, poised to give Fluttershy the treatment she desperately needed. They all felt rather glad that this needle wasn't going to be anywhere near them. The size of the thing was honestly more than a little intimidating. It's complicated, Pewter explained, flicking the needle tip with a small spark of magic. Tick-Tock, help me locate the exact point of infection, please, while I enchant the solution. Certainly, Tick-Tock nodded. Her horn flickered to life as she concentrated her own magic to seek out a focal point of Fluttershy's illness. She found the spot at the base of Fluttershy's neck, and used her magic to highlight the exact spot, causing it to glow a lime green. It was slightly smaller than a single bit piece, maybe an inch or so around. Because of Tick-Tock's glow, they could all see the entry wound clearly now. Before it had been healed up so quickly and flawlessly that even Rarity's intense scrutiny could not detect it. But now they all could see it clear as day. The wound itself was not particularly disturbing, but if the traces of green magic that snaked outwards from it were what they thought they were, then they all felt their worry was more than justified. Pewter wiped his brow and lowered the needle tip to touch the spot precisely in the centre, before forcing it gently through coat and skin. He felt the slight pressure reaching the needle's grooved marking, and he knew he was at the proper depth to get the maximum effect. Squeezing the plunger slowly, he forced a dull, dimly glowing blue liquid through the syringe and into Fluttershy's system. Gargantuan antivenom is extremely delicate, he explained. Since the venom itself is magical in nature, it works by essentially injecting even more venom into the patient, laced with magically created antibodies that instantly seek out and repair the damaged sections of tissue and nerves. They keep working until there's no more infected area to repair, so I need to inject them into the original source of impact, where the greatest concentration of damage will be, otherwise it's all wasted. They need to be mixed with more of the venom so that the venom inside of the patient doesn't immediately try to fight off the cure, Tick-Tock added. We basically have to trick the venom already inside her into thinking that the antibodies are more venom. But the moment they're inside, they start working, begin cleaning, and just plain make things better. Bloody nasty stuff, gargantuan venom. It almost works like a cancer. And like a cancer, it will do whatever it can to fight off the body's defences. How long until she makes her recovery? Rarity asked worriedly. She'll regain consciousness in a few hours, Pewter nodded. The venom luckily didn't spread upwards to her brain or spinal column, so she'll make a full recovery in a matter of days, if not sooner. You can thank Tick-Tock for that. Had the inspection spread to more vital areas, your little friend here may very well have lost control of basic motor skills or worse, brain function. Wow, Twilight gulped. Thank you, Tick-Tock. You've done Fluttershy a great service. You've done us all a great service. Nothing to it, Tick-Tock shook her head. Like I've said countless times, she'll be fine. If there's one thing working out here has taught me, it's how to deal with gargantuan stings. What's best after the anti-venom finishes working, the antibodies will remain in her bloodstream for several weeks. As long as they are, she's practically immune to further infection, unless by a more mature gargantuan. She needs a little bed rest now until she wakes up. Until then, we wait and we rest. Really rest this time, with food and sleep and everything. For now, just let her breathe easy and get some sleep. We're going to need it ourselves, because as has been said, she won't make a full recovery for a few days. Until then, she's going to be very weak and may need assistance moving. Oh dear, my poor sweet Fluttershy. Rarity frowned. Well, at least she's alive, and she'll eventually be back to normal, right? I couldn't stand it if this horrid ordeal crippled her forever. Right, Pewter nodded. As Tick-Tock said, she needs some bed rest, and she needs to keep warm. That's most important. This jacket of yours, Lockwood? Very exquisite fabric. It does its job nicely. I'm certain you'd like it back, though. I'll give you some blankets to replace it. It was my pleasure, Lockwood nodded. You really don't need to go through all that, though. I'll be willing to let her keep using it for as long as needed. Rarity smiled gently at the offer. Pewter continued. Very well, then. I'll mix up a batch of some of my special Griffin's root stew for her as well. More than likely it'll help speed things along. Loaded with nutrients, and it'll keep her insides warm, even if she's not under anything heavy. Some rest and a hearty meal will do her good. Be back on her hooves and wings in no time. Rarity turned to Tick-Tock and nodded deeply. Thank you again, darling. I apologize if I was hostile earlier, but save it. Tick-Tock held up her hoof. I understand you were worried about your friend. I don't fault you for it. Even if I was a bit short with you in return. The stress of it all has been getting to me these past couple of days. And as long as everything's behind us now, just forget about it. We'll make it the rest of the way without too much incident, hopefully. Come along then, Pewter beckoned as he headed for the door into the main hall. Your friends have likely all gotten the dining room prepared by now, so I'll get started on dinner. Your friend, Miss Applejack, was it? She said she'd help me fetch a few things from my garden, and I'd like not to keep her waiting. She wouldn't rush you. Who's this talking? Twilight. She wouldn't rush you. In fact, I'm sure some of the others would be glad to help you prepare anything you need help with. All of us would, Twilight said as she followed. But for our sake, please don't ask Rainbow Dash for help. She's not very good around the kitchen. What was it that Pinky said, Rarity? She made Applejack's baked bads look like baked okays. Rarity snickered. If there's one thing Rainbow Dash is not at all good at, it's cooking. Lockwood, are you coming? Tick-Tock asked. Lockwood had stayed rather firm at the sofa, not moving at all to follow the others. If it's alright, I'd like to stay here with Fluttershy. I'm not that hungry. Not really. I'd feel better if some pony were here with her. We all want to be here to stay with her, Twilight nodded. But Tick-Tock is right. We're all exhausted, hungry, and need some rest. Yourself included. Even in hospitals, they don't let visitors in that soon after treatment. Give her some time. Oh, I know all that, Lockwood replied. And when she does wake up, I'm sure we'll all want to be here. But until then, perhaps we should watch in shifts then. I'll volunteer for the first one. I just don't feel right leaving her alone in a new place. Rarity smiled. I appreciate that, Mr. Lockwood. If you want to watch over her in shifts, I think we can all agree to that. Tell you what. If you take first shift, I'll relieve you once I'm finished downstairs. After I have a good meal and a hot bath, that is. You could deal with one of each yourself, especially the latter, she added with a smirk. so I'll try not to dawdle. All joking aside, you girls must be hungry. I'll stay here, and maybe later I'll have something. Lockwood nodded. I'll be honest, I need a good nap more than anything else. He added it with a yawn, snuggling himself into the large, cosy chair nearby. Tick-Tock and Pewter led the way down the hall, quite a few paces ahead of the other two unicorns. As those two headed out of the room into the hall, Rarity lightly tapped Twilight's shoulder to get her attention. Twilight, darling, I need to speak with you a moment. Oh, sure thing, Rarity. Can't wait though, I'm starving. Can we talk after? Rarity hissed quietly. I'd prefer if we could get it out of the way now, if we could. Privately. Twilight nodded with some uncertainty. Oh, okay, sure, what's on your mind? Listen, Twilight, I know we already sort of discussed this a while ago, but Rainbow Dash was present, and frankly, I would rather not give her any reason to be more upset than she already is with you. Twilight remained silent, but nodded in understanding. If any pony in the group was ready to blow up at any moment, it was Rainbow. You're lucky that most of her anger right now is being directed at Miss Tick-Tock, but I don't fall in the same boat, as 'twere. I'm more observant than that. This thing is, darling, I'm beginning to wonder if you know what you're doing. Twilight sighed. She knew this was coming. Starlight's assessment was more than accurate enough that Twilight could see it now too. How long would it be before the others would want to have this talk with her? Rarity, please understand that I never wanted any of this. I honestly think Tick-Tock knew what she was talking about with the volcanic region, and that Fluttershy was in no danger around that thing. I'd have never guessed that Fluttershy's talent with animals wouldn't work, would you? I listened when I shouldn't have, and didn't when I should. I'm sorry. Rarity huffed. Sorry? Darling, your gross understanding of the situation nearly cost one of your friends. My dearest friend, her life. Sorry doesn't cut it, Twilight. I want an assurance from you that this won't happen again. You know I can't. Promise me, Twilight. We all look for you for guidance. You've always been sort of our de facto leader. I still would rather you all didn't act like that, Twilight frowned. I haven't done anything to deserve that kind of position, really. Princess Celestia certainly thinks you're capable, Rarity said pointedly. And all we want to know is whether you could be trusted with that responsibility. The last thing I want is to fear for my life and the lives of my friends because you can't make up your mind on what the best course of action is. Am I clear? Rarity's intense look made Twilight nervous, but she knew Rarity was right. Yes, I promise there won't be any repeats of this. I'll be more observant in the future, and I will take more diligence in analysing Tick-Tock's information. I already have Applejack helping to get our bearings a bit better so I can make more informed decisions about our route. And I am trying to get us all to learn a little more about this world from our new friends, so that's a start, right? Rarity smiled and nodded. It's a good start, yes. But I am glad to see you're involving us in that endeavour. Now come along, darling. With all that out of the way, we can hopefully put all this terrible business behind us. I'm absolutely famished, and if Mr. Pewter is right in saying he has real food to prepare, I should say this will be a most pleasant break from rations. Dinner had passed, and the night had worn on long enough that some of the others had gone to sleep, while a few still were waiting for their turns in the washroom to get properly cleaned. Not Applejack, though. She wasn't feeling too tired yet, but she didn't feel too comfortable in her assigned room at the moment. She also decided it a better idea to get washed up when she wouldn't be competing with other ponies for a spot in the line. Maybe when she'd get some privacy. Heck, the only reason she was going to bother with it is because if she didn't, she'd never hear the end of it from Rarity. Outside was mostly quiet, so she could be alone with her thoughts. Mostly, of course. only broken by a soft thumping from the ground beneath her hooves that sent dusty powder bumping along with every pass. Peter had explained he had some devices under the ground that drove away gargantuans. It screwed with their senses, he said, so they wouldn't bother the checkpoint as long as they functioned. It was soothing in a way to have the feeling of good lively earth beneath her hooves, rather than the dead sand and cracked dirt of the rest of the wasteland, and this gave Applejack the calm she needed to think. Something the past couple of days had been bothering her. She couldn't quite put a hoof on it. It was only a tiny thing, though. Not enough to break her focus on more important tasks, but enough to divide her attention whenever she had a free moment. Bit for your thoughts, darling? Applejack sighed. So much for being alone. Howdy, Rarity. Didn't expect you, of all ponies, to want to talk to me. Y'all usually only talk when you need advice on being a good sister. I figured y'all would be keeping watch on Fluttershy by now. That or getting all fussied up for no good reason. Fluttershy's in good hoofs now. I have no doubt about that. I am awfully concerned for her, of course. But all of my friends are important to me, dear Applejack. And when I heard you'd come out here alone, I was worried. I just wanted to make sure you were alright, darling. Why are you out here all by yourself? Just thinking about a few things. Nothing important. What can I do for you? Did y'all need something? Actually, now that you mention it, perhaps you could help me with a little problem. Besides, my dear Fluttershy's horrible illness and the worry that stems from it, I've had another very bothersome thought on my mind these past 3 days. Something I was hoping you, in particular, could help me with. Granted, I've had more important matters on my mind, but these thoughts just don't go away. Applejack grew suspicious. Me? What kind of problem y'all having that you need my help? Well, it involves you, for one, Rarity said simply, and Mr. Flathoof for two. Applejack kept a firm face, determined not to betray her surprise. What do you mean? Well, to be honest, darling, I've noticed that lately you've been acting strange around him. I mean, is there something going on between you two? I don't think that's any of your business, Applejack replied shortly. I don't mean to intrude, darling. I was just curious, as 'twere. I tend to notice these sorts of things. You know, some more obvious than others. Take my dear Fluttershy, for example. Shoot, even Dash noticed what's what with her and Mr. Lockwood. Why were you trusting them all alone together? She don't much like it, to be honest. You're all treading on thin ice trying to set up those two, if you ask me. Don't sit right with me. It's all trying to force that kind of thing on two ponies. Did y'all learn nothing from your little sister on last Hearts and Hooves Day? Rarity pouted. Heavens, Applejack, you act as if I don't know what I'm doing. I should say I'm a little more discreet and intelligent about these sorts of things than those little fillies are. After all, I do have more experience in these matters, and I for one think those two would make a perfect couple. Uh-huh, Applejack rolled her eyes. Y'all never did explain that bit. Why you think they're so perfect together and all? Rarity hesitated a moment, then gave a coy laugh. Well, I'd go over it with you, darling, but I'm afraid I would jinx myself, and what good would that do them? Well, that's besides the point. I said I take notice of these sorts of things, yes? Well, it doesn't take a genius to see the way you act around Flathoof, and to guess there's something more to it. Though I highly doubt Rainbow Dash has noticed that yet, Applejack turned her head. So what if there is? Frankly, Rarity, I'd just as soon prefer y'all to stay out of my personal matters. Rarity gave a tiny, knowing grin. So there is something going on between you two. Shoot, Applejack snorted. Walked right into that one. She hesitated a moment. Not that it's any of your business, but no, there ain't nothing going on between us two. It wouldn't be right to think of nothing like that. What with him not sure about his feelings for Snapshot and all. Would have a right bad taste in my mouth. I see, Rarity nodded. So she let out a heavy relief sigh. Thank goodness for that. Applejack faced Rarity again. a look of confused indignation on her face. Now what in the hay is that supposed to mean? Heavens, my dear Applejack, don't tell me you haven't noticed. At Applejack's blank look, Rarity put her hoof to her mouth in shock. You haven't? Oh, poor dear. Well, you should be most thankful you didn't start up a relationship then. You certainly saved yourself a great deal of trouble. You lost me. What the hell are y'all talking about? My dear Applejack, tell me, does Fluttershy remind you of any pony in particular? Applejack rolled her eyes. Well, shucks, ain't that obvious? He's just like me, hard-working, honest, strong, family ties. Heavens, darling, that sounds like any pony in your family. Truth be told, let me be more specific. Does he remind you of any pony else in your immediate family? Think hard now. Some pony more masculine, perhaps? Applejack put a hoof to her chin. Well, now that you mention it, I suppose he kind of reminds me of my big brother. Is that why y'all going with this? Precisely. Certainly better words, if I may say so, but I do believe I'm getting ahead of myself. Well, yeah, okay, I guess I can see that. Heck, they even sort of alike, Applejack admitted with some trepidation. Now that it had been brought up, she really couldn't help but notice that Rarity had a point. The two could almost be twins, only Big Macintosh was certainly better built and Flathoof had more tidiness to him. Yes, of course, I was about to add that as well, Rarity nodded. And yes, like your brother, he is honest and dedicated and has a strong bond with his family. Anything I'm missing? Well, no, that does sound like an awful lot like my brother. So you see where there may be a problem then? Applejack chuckled in confusion. No, not really. Wouldn't that all be a good thing? How is that? Oh, Applejack, darling, you poor dear. You have no idea, do you? He's just a few hairs short of being Big Macintosh. If you and he were to, form a relationship, why, just think of the implications. Every pony might start getting the wrong idea. What kind of idea would that be? Applejack glared. Her eyes narrowed. Since you can't have your brother, you may as well pick the next closest stallion. Rarity said so simply it may as well have been assumed as a common fact. Applejack's face paled. Her jaw dropped. Soon after, her cheeks flared an angry red. She spluttered. Listen. That there's just the dumbest thing I ever heard. I don't care what the rumors are, the Apple clan don't practice none of that. That hogwash. Have you been talking with Dash again? I told her that these jokes weren't funny. When I got my hooves on her, I'll... I didn't insinuate anything, darling. I'm not getting this from Rainbow Dash, or any pony else for that matter. I'm making an observation, and that I think other more uncouth ponies may notice if it becomes too obvious. If you want to make sure these rumours stay rumours and don't turn into gossip, perhaps it would be best not to give any pony an excuse. Why, if what you say is true, Rainbow Dash would have an absolute field day. Well, it just so happens that I don't have any of those kinds of feelings for Flathoof, so there ain't no worry with thinking. I want no pony just 'cause they're like my brother, you hear? Even if I did like Flathoof like that, y'all can't bet it would be 'cause of his, not my brother qualities. Applejack's voice nearly cracked a few times saying it. Anger, disappointment, confusion. She wasn't sure what emotion to convey at this moment. Glad to hear it, darling. You're one of my dearest friends, you understand, and I'd hate to see any pony else have a lower opinion of you because your taste in stallions. Not that there's anything wrong with Flathoof, to be sure, or Big Macintosh for that matter, but the implications are there, and... No more. I don't want to hear no more of this nonsense, Applejack stamped a hoof. You all just keep your nosy business to yourself now, you hear? And not a word of this to any pony neither. Last thing I want for any pony is to be getting ideas. Of course, darling, I wouldn't dream of it. Besides, just between you and me, if there weren't any issues with you two getting together, I don't think I would work out anyway. Applejack raised an eyebrow. Now what in the hay is that supposed to mean? You're saying I couldn't snag him even if I did like him? Which I remind you I don't. I'm sure you could if you wanted, darling. Work that rustic charm of yours? But I should say that it is bad form to try and snag a stallion who is obviously attracted to some pony else. Applejack stared blankly. What? Like I said, I have an eye for these sort of things. Let's just say I think our dear Flower is rather more attracted to unicorns. Well, yeah, I mean, he did say he was sort of wondering what Snapshot really meant to him, but that wouldn't... Oh, no, darling, Rarity waved her hoof. I'm not referring to Snapshot. I'm referring to, of course, to some pony else in this very group. It doesn't surprise me, frankly. Unicorns are such more elegant and refined than earth ponies, and Flutter seems like the type to like a more educated mare. Applejack's first thought came to mind, and it was that there were 3 unicorns travelling with them, not counting the 2 new additions, who Rarity couldn't have been inferring had caught Fluttershy's eye. And to Applejack, this only left one real option, a unicorn who back at home needed to fight off the stallions with a stick, and had on more than one occasion made Applejack feel a fool because of it. She fought the urge to spit fire, restoring instead to an angry sputter. Why, you double-crossing? Rarity's eyes widened. Calm yourself, Applejack, she said quickly. I wasn't referring to myself, of course. He's not my type anyway. I'm more into a graceful and fancy pony, yes? Good heavens, whatever would give you that idea? Applejack's anger settled a little bit, and she was rather upset, more with herself for possibly blowing her cover. Well, you all said a unicorn with elegance, and then Rarity's last word struck her. Education. Applejack let out a heavy sigh. Well, I suppose I saw that coming. I can't say I'd find it fair to interfere with and even she... Rarity laughed a little. No, of course. I'm not referring to Twilight either. Poor dear wouldn't have the courage to go for it. Her head is full of books and spells and dealing with keeping every pony on track. I highly doubt the thoughts of romance had even made themselves known. I was thinking of some pony more green. It hit Applejack like a truck. She narrowed her eyes and hissed, Tick-Tock? Rarity nodded lightly in response. Why, that's no good. But what does it matter though, darling? You said you don't like him like that anyway. Unless you were lying, of course. The little twinge of doubt in Rarity's voice made Applejack hesitant for a moment. She averted her eyes from Rarity, knowing full too well what would happen if she didn't. No, you're all right, it didn't matter. I'm just hurt that she didn't mention nothing about it. Thanks, Sugar Cube, I appreciate your honesty. My pleasure, Applejack. I'd hate to see you hurt, you understand. I'll leave you alone with your thoughts. I'm sorry if I interrupted. I really must go back to tend to dear Fluttershy. She should be waking up any time now. It's fine, I'll come back inside later, and thanks again, Rarity, for your understanding, and for not making a big deal out of this. Rarity trotted away. As soon as Applejack was sure she was out of earshot, she slammed her hoof on a nearby rock. Dagnabbit! Applejack began to pace. She was incensed, and she felt rather disappointed in herself for fibbing to Rarity, who she sure wasn't fooled. She admitted to herself a few nights ago that she was attracted to him, and only found her efforts to get closer to him stymied by his niggling doubts of his feelings for Snapshot. She hadn't lied there. She found it in bad taste to try and wiggle away into his heart when he was pained by loss. Rarity's words rang with a certain and disappointing truth. She noticed the similarities now, and she realized why she felt disturbed when she said or did things that were a little too close for comfort. No wonder she was bothered by the utterance of a single word that never before in her life bothered her. No wonder a simple twig meant that the difference between comfort and worry. All Applejack could think of was if was that if Flathoof were any closer to being like Big Macintosh, he may as well be Big Macintosh. Well, she thought at least she could discount one shared quality, honesty. Of all the downright no-good callous things to do, she'd gone ahead and not only forged a relationship with some pony else who didn't tell her, or obviously any pony else, so he was a sneak too. But, well, she admitted it hurt a lot more than it was with Tick-Tock and not herself. It wasn't until Flathoof himself came outside that Applejack really thought about Rarity's words and how much they bothered her. "Applejack? Oh, there you are," he said as he poked his head out the door and trotted over. I thought you'd be inside with Rainbow checking on Peter's exercise room. This place sure is loaded with all sorts of stuff. Can you believe there's a whole nother half underground? What are you doing out here alone anyway?" "Thinking," Applejack said shortly. "Huh, I know what you mean. What about?" "Nothing. Y'all come out here for a reason?" Flathoof was put off by Applejack's sudden sternness. Tick-Tock and Twilight are looking for you. They want to start planning the route through Goldridge, and want you there to make sure you're all in agreement. Twilight said something about not making this a repeat performance, if you catch my drift. Right, tell Tick-Tock I'll be there in a moment. I'm sure she'd be glad to hear y'all tell her. Flav remained still, unsure of how to respond. "Is there something wrong, Applejack? You seem a little upset about something. Anything you want to talk about? Only fair that I'll listen to your troubles since you've listened to mine." "Nope, I'm just dandy. If you want to talk about something, I'd go looking for some point to talk to." "Are you sure? Because I said I'm fine, Flathoof. Now if y'all'd excuse me," and she brusquely pushed her way past him. Flathoof was perplexed. What in the hay was that all about? Forget it. All the stress is getting to me too. I'm just hearing things. Talking to myself as well. Shaking his head, he headed inside after her, but tried not to follow too closely. Fluttershy very slowly opened her eyes. The only thing on her mind right now was how much she ached all over, especially her neck and back. She couldn't remember much of what happened since she left and felt much of anything at all. She remembered being in the arid wasteland. There was a creature that her friend had been rather callous to, and she remembered trying to tend to the poor thing. She remembered Tick-Tock yelling something about getting away. Then her mind went blank, and she didn't remember much of anything else. Thus, she was rather confused and a little frightened at the very sudden change in her surroundings. This wasn't the desert. That much was for certain. This was a nice, cosy little room, with books lining the walls. Enough that for a fleeting moment she thought that she'd see Twilight somewhere nearby, gushing about finally having a new book to read. Twilight. She remembered seeing Twilight too, hearing her confidence in Fluttershy's ability to handle the creature they'd seen. But there were so many other curiosities. Why was she on a sofa in this room? Why couldn't she feel her legs or her wings? And why was the only thing she could feel a stinging pain in her neck? And what was this heavy thing covering her? It was warm and it smelled nice. It looked familiar. Oh, that's what it was. Fluttershy could see it now. It was Lockwood's jacket. Why was his jacket draped over her like a blanket? And where was he? Better yet, where were any of her friends? Where was she, for that matter? Fluttershy was filled with a sudden worry and terrible fear. Had something happened? She couldn't remember. Was every pony okay? Where were they? Her friends would be honest about what had happened. Who would stand loyally by to keep her safe, to try and fill her heart with joy and laughter, and to generously give all of their time and effort to make her feel safe. A quiet snore, not so loud enough to bother any pony already sleeping, but enough to alert some pony who was awake to its presence, came from nearby. Fluttershy was startled and made to jump away defensively, but couldn't find the strength to move, and the attempt to try pained her immensely. Like a fire ripping through her veins, She could... Sorry about that, there was a delivery I had to tend to. I'll start again from the beginning of the paragraph. A quiet snore, not loud enough to bother any pony already sleeping, but enough to alert some pony who was awake to its presence, came from nearby. Fluttershy was startled and made to jump away defensively, but couldn't find the strength to move, and the attempt to try pained her immensely, like a fire ripping through her veins. She could still move her neck, she found, though it hurt a little to do so. Well, she thought, it was better than not moving at all and being caught completely unawares. Moving her head less so that she could now see the rest of the room, she spotted a large, cosy chair directly next to the sofa, and in particular the familiar grey Pegasus resting comfortably in it. Thank goodness it was only Lockwood. She let out a very quiet sigh of relief, so small that not even she could hear it. Well, she thought at least. Well, she thought, at least some ponies here. She wasn't all alone, but now that bothered her a little more. Her friends must still be okay, at least. That's what she hoped. So then, where were they? And why was she here? And why was she herself here, lying on this sofa with a great deal of aches and pains and barely able to move? Across the room, Fluttershy saw the door creak open, and she couldn't help attempt to smile. Ah, there's one of them now, she thought. Whoever it was must have gone out to the little filly's room or something. They wouldn't leave her alone if they knew she felt like this. Her eager elation turned to a dismissal disappointment. Certainly none of her closest friends were green. Tick-Tock's head poked quickly into the doorframe. She looked straight at Fluttershy. She barely tried to suppress a smile, and entered the room as quietly as she could. Clearly, she did not want to wake Lockwood just yet. "You're up sooner than I expected. Maybe you're made of tougher stuff than I thought." Tick-Tock smirked as she took a seat beside the sofa. Her horn began to glow immediately and started probing over Fluttershy's neck and back with her magic. Fluttershy felt some of the pain melt away, but nowhere near all of it. What was Tick-Tock doing back there? "Miss Tick-Tock?" Fluttershy nodded. Where am I? Where are my friends?" Tick-Tock was not distracted from whatever she was doing, but answered Fluttershy with a calm manner that made the Pegasus feel at ease. "We're at the checkpoint at Goldridge Pass. It's a few miles east of the gargantuan nesting grounds we landed in. Your friends are all okay. They're all over the place now, either eating or resting. But why aren't they here? Why is Mr. Lockwood?" Fluttershy sniffed. "Oh, well, you can't blame them for that," Tick-Tock admitted. "You needed to rest, and so did the rest of us. You weren't supposed to be up yet, so they're not here to switch shifts with him yet. See, he suggested we take shifts looking over you." "Oh." "Why was Lockwood the first to want to watch over her? Surely Twilight would, being the one with all the know-how. Or surely Rarity, her closest friend. What happened out there? That they all needed to watch over me, I mean. You had a pretty nasty experience out there. Gave us all a bloody fright, I tell you." She remembered now. "Oh dear, is that poor creature okay?" Fluttershy gasped. "Last thing I remember, I was tending to it out after the other girls attacked it." "Yes, well, it's dead. You have no reason to fear it now," Tick-Tock stated rather bluntly. Fluttershy sniffed and frowned, though she was still quite weak and one could barely see a difference. Her voice cracked. Oh dear. How could they... What had her friends done?" What had her friends done? She had asked them to be gentle. How could they betray her trust like that? Tick-Tock raised an eyebrow. "What's the matter?" Then she remembered Fluttershy's pleading from earlier, and it made sense. Oh, right, you think... I apologize." She defensively waved a hoof. "Your friends didn't kill it or anything like that. It killed itself. See, gargantuans share a lot of aspects with a lot of similar sorts of insects. You've seen that they look like spider, shagged... You've seen that they look like a spider shagged a mantis. If you'll pardon my language, she added to Fluttershy's discomfort only apparent in her eyes. Well, that big stinger thing and the venom it carries, it works kind of like bees. They only sting as a last resort, because it kills them almost immediately. Their bloodstream is a chock full of venom. See, and stinging them sends them into a shock that outright kills them. So, it stung some pony? Oh no, I told them to be gentle, and it was probably defending itself. Are they okay? Who was hurt? Oh dear. Well, actually, it stung you, specifically. Fluttershy was perplexed. She was helping the poor thing, and it had responded so kindly to her gesture as well. She said as much now to Tick-Tock. Why would it sting me after I tried to help it? No, there has to be some mistake. No animal would ever harm me. Tick-Tock gave a heavy sigh. Fluttershy, you have to understand. Gargantuans are not normal animals, nor are they some sort of rare beast that exists in storybooks like dragons or manticores, which I understand exist in your world. Well, those beasts are just things of dreams and dreams. Gargantuans are the stuff of nightmares, even in this world. I'd say especially so if they existed in that candy-coated world you call home. I don't believe it, Fluttershy said rather firmly, for her anyway. I was just exhausted, that's all. Yes, I must have fainted from all the excitement. Oh no, that means the poor thing is still hurt out there. Fluttershy attempted to, in a futile effort, to squirm out of the rest area. Tick-Tock put a stop to it, tucking Lockwood's jacket under the sofa's folds tightly so that Fluttershy was pressed against the cushions. She tried not to be rough, but Fluttershy's fidgeting made it that difficult. Fluttershy, listen. I'm telling the truth. That thing attacked you the moment you dropped your guard. It's what they do. They're heartless beasts, and they're nothing like animals from your world. Fluttershy struggled and struggled, but could not get away. The poor thing was hurt. It had to be. But the more she fought, the weaker she felt, and eventually she relented. The story had made some sense. The pain in her neck, the numbness, and the inability to remember any of the events between, they all seemed to point to her being stricken with some sudden malady. But from the creature's sting, that all seemed a stretch. What would make this animal strike at her, when no other animal ever had? I don't understand. What makes them different? Centuries of exposure to horrible chaotic magics and run-of-the-mill mutations have turned what was once a rather tame and docile insect into the beast it is today. Gargantuans are monsters. They are heartless, single-minded, bloody killing machines. The only things that Gargantuans care about are food, killing for food, and breeding more of themselves so that they can kill more things for food. When there's nothing to hunt, they kill each other for sport, and of course for food. When they breed, the males kill each other for mating rights to a female, who is bred, then kills her mate to serve as an incubator for its eggs, and then promptly dies so that both parents can be cannibalized by the new young, who then often kill one another out of the instinctive territorial behaviours. Killing and eating, that's all they live for. Fluttershy's discomfort and horror were a little too apparent in her eyes. No creature she'd ever known, even the fiercest of predators she knew, were that cruel and violent. Not even counting the rarer beasts. She'd handled hawks and lynxes and bears, and even all the dangerous insects like that the Gargantuans themselves seemed to be similar to. Not a one of them had ever attacked Fluttershy, even at her worst. Tick-Tock frowned but continued her explanation. Forgive my bluntness, and perhaps too graphic descriptions of their habits, but I need you to understand. These creatures don't know compassion. They are born from violence. They become violent at birth. They never will know a mother's love, and will never love their own young. They cannot be tamed, or reasoned with, and in desperation they will use any trick they can to lure their assailant into being set upon by the rest of their brood, out of nothing more than petty bleeding revenge. They're monsters, nothing more, nothing less. I just want you to understand that, so you don't do the same foolish thing like trying to tend to one of those things again. Should we encounter any in the eastern wasteland once we've crossed these mountains? Fluttershy whimpered, but nodded. She'd learned a hard lesson at the gala so long ago that perhaps her touch of animals was not universal. She'd learned since then that she couldn't act as if she was the end-all be-all animal specialist, but she had long gotten over that experience, and taken her lesson to heart. She'd been considerably more patient with all animals, and more inclined to take things slowly and sweetly than trying to force any animal to be her friend. But this world seemed to be a new lesson in store for her. Here, where everything was drab and grey and filled with such sadness and anger, the one thing she felt confident she could still contribute to the cause was her ability to befriend wild creatures, and perhaps keep her friends out of trouble. With that potential stripped from her, what use was she? She didn't want to use the stare or anything unless as an extreme measure. Did it really have to come to that? Tick-Tock had to be exaggerating. It seemed impossible to think any animal could act with such malice. But Fluttershy remained silent. She'd seen the way Tick-Tock argued with Twilight and Rainbow Dash, and if the green unicorn was stubborn enough to argue with them, what chance did she have? Now then, Tick-Tock said as she straightened herself and let her magic relax. She was clearly done with whatever she was doing, which Fluttershy now guessed was checking on her recovery. I do believe that my good friend Pewter has prepared some lovely herbal stew for you, to help you along the road to wellness. I'll nip down and get it. You just take it easy and stay in bed, or sofa. You've got a long day ahead of you, and some new ponies to meet. New ponies? Fluttershy asked. Long story, Tick-Tock rolled her eyes. But don't worry, they're alright. I guess a sweetheart like you won't have any trouble making friends. You'll like Pewter at any rate. He's a dear friend of mine, and this is his place for staying at. After all, now rest, okay? As Tick-Tock began to leave, Fluttershy peeped. Oh, thank you, Miss Tick-Tock. Where are my friends, if you don't mind me asking? Are they really okay? They're just fine. We all rushed to get you here, so they're awfully tuckered out. Rarity wanted to take the next shift for watching over you, Tick-Tock replied simply. But after dinner, she said she desperately needed a bath, and pushed her way past every pony else. Lockwood volunteered to stay with you a while longer until she was all done. Poor bloke looks like he nodded off. He's been there all night, even skipped a proper dinner. Want me to wake him? No, no, that's fine. Just, tell Rarity I'm awake, and the others, if you could, please. You really must get your rest, Fluttershy. Having your troop all here might well make a bloody mess of that. They can see you in the morning. I'll make an exception for Rarity, though, seeing as she was the most concerned for you. Not that your other friends were less. Forget it. You know what I meant. Tick-Tock quietly closed the door again. Heading out for this stew she'd mentioned. Most concerned? Fluttershy was distraught by that. If she was so concerned, why wasn't she here, now? Couldn't the bath have waited? And despite Tick-Tock's attempt to brush it off, what did most concern mean anyway? She remembered when Rainbow Dash had injured herself in flight practice. On more than one occasion, in fact, Fluttershy and all her friends had made the effort to be there for her. But where were her friends now, when she needed them? A snort from the chair alerted her. Had she been able to, it would have made her leap into the air. But the re-acknowledgement of Lockwood's presence was comforting. Had he really been there the whole night? And without his jacket? He must be cold. Fluttershy turned a little pink and gestured. The gesture was touching, and she had to admit it made her feel nice. At least some ponies seemed concerned enough not to leave her alone. Strange it was him, and not any of her other friends. Rarity's words about him, however, long ago that had been, seemed to weigh more now. Lockwood awoke rather slowly to see Fluttershy looking right at him. By the time she noticed, it was too late to pretend she hadn't been. Ah, you're awake, he mumbled. He started to drift back into his sleep, but suddenly snapping awake again. "You're awake!" Hi," Fluttershy squeaked. Lockwood wasted no time getting out of his chair and making a beeline for the door. She peeped again. "Where are you going?" Hastily he answered, "Rarity asked me to get her as soon as you woke up. I really should go fetch..." Well, Tick-Tock's already here." "Oh, well, Tick-Tock was already here. She's getting Rarity, and some dinner. For me, that is. So, you don't have to go. Besides, Rarity's in a bath, so..." Lockwood hesitated a moment near the door. He started, looking in Fluttershy's direction, and seeing the look of disappointment and dejection in her eyes. He decided against the joke for once. He trotted over to the sofa and stood by his seat. "Very well, at your insistence, my lady. I'll stick around until Tick-Tock returns with dear Miss Rarity. Anything I can get you?" He bowed. She shook her head. "No, I'm fine, thank you." She paused a moment. It was a very pregnant pause. I want to thank you for watching over me. You didn't have to." He gave her a light smile. "It was my pleasure, really. It's what I do. Caring for those in need. And right now, you seem to be the one most in need of a helping hoof." Fluttershy weakly nodded. Then she remembered something. His jacket was draped over her in a blanket, leaving him standing there in a dull grey undershirt that was definitely not as warm. "Oh, your jacket. You must be cold. You can have it back now." He waved a hoof. "For now, your jacket. For now, your blanket. Peter said that keeping you warm is important to helping your recovery. Just so happened I had the only warm clothes that would cover you so fully. Miss Dash offered that jacket of hers, but it didn't cover enough. Blasted shame we lost so many supplies in that dang volcano. Those sleeping bags could have come in handy right now." "Oh, I'm so sorry I troubled you like this. Really, my dear, don't fuss over it. I'd give it up in an instant if it helped. I even suggested we just let you keep my jacket since it's such a good quality. It's made from a, and I quote, very exquisite fabric. Keeps you warm in the cold, cool in the heat, protects from winds and rains. Even acid rains like in the city. And is oh so comfortable, wouldn't you agree?" "It's very nice," Fluttershy thought for a moment. She snuggled into the leather. "I wouldn't mind using it a little longer, I mean, if you don't mind." His smile widened considerably. "I don't mind at all. Anything to help you along your road to recovery." "Oh, thank you, Mr. And please, no need to use the Mr. moniker anymore. We're friends, right? It makes me feel like I'm an old stallion. I like to think I've still got a few years left in me. What do you think? Still in my prime?" He jokingly flexed a forearm and fluttered his wings. "Well, okay, so maybe I'm not Stud's monthly material. What'd you expect, Fluttershy laughed. It was nice having somebody to cheer her up. Rarity was right. This stallion was something special. It wasn't so much a sense of humour. Pinkie Pie had that. But what Pinkie Pie lacked was Lockwood had was moderation, control. Lockwood's humour was more tame, and it made her feel at ease when he was trying to make her feel better. "I don't think many stallions are Stud monthly material," Fluttershy noted. Lockwood raised an eyebrow. "Wait, what? How did you know about that magazine?" Fluttershy flustered. We have that in our world too?" The maid Lockwood's eyebrow raised further, threatening to disappear into his hair. "Not that I read them or anything, but I suppose there's not much to read." Lockwood didn't stop giving her that utterly confused look. Rarity reads them, maybe, but she says it's only for the articles. "So you don't think I qualify? Or do you?" "Well, like I said, I don't read them myself, but you're tall and have a very good wing tone. Rarity said she thinks you're groomed well. I agree with that. And you're She found herself blushing furiously, growing redder with every word until she was sure she would explode from sheer embarrassment. He chuckled. "You know, if you're trying to figure out what my cutie mark means, it would be quicker to ask." Her eyes widened in surprise. Caught. I didn't mean to stare. I just... Relax, Fluttershy. I'm just teasing. Yes, I know none of you have seen it yet. Always under my jacket. Can't help it. Dang thing's too big. And I don't quite have Flathoof's physique. Perfectly understandable to try and figure it out. Lockwood's cutie mark was rather dull, which he admitted. Neither flashy nor colourful, or even very decorative. Just a perfectly ordinary drab but clean black umbrella. It rather matched his own umbrella, which he'd managed to hang on to, that now lay against the side of the sofa. He grinned. It's actually a long, incredibly boring story. I hear you need some bed rest, so if you want me to help you get to sleep, I'd be happy to oblige. I'd like to hear it. Well, to be honest, this is going to sound like a really convoluted explanation. Flatterhoof joked that I should just simplify it and say that I'm good at keeping others out of the rain. What kind of special talent is that? No, mine is more complicated than that. See, I've always been kind of a rebel, as far as what my society expects of me. I grew up in the lower districts, so no pony would have been surprised if I turned out to be a peddler or a criminal, but I just couldn't see myself falling into those expectations. The state of things bothered me. The foals without parents or food or schooling. The homeless beggars, all of them. I thought it wasn't fair, and I wanted to help, but I didn't have the resources, the know-how, or the connections. Then I made a friend, Flathoof, and he used his talents for protecting those who could not protect themselves. I was kind of a wimp in school, see, to keep me out of trouble, and that inspired me to seek out a way to do the same, in a way. From here I made more friends. Those friends introduced me to their other friends, and they introduced me to their friends, and so on. I'm very friendly, see? Notice the trend yet? Eventually I realised that I was really good at making friends, making connections with other ponies of any social creed and standing. I formed myself a beautiful little social network that I found I could use to start helping ponies in the slums. My own umbrella, if you will. Hence the cutie mark. Pretty silly, eh? Fluttershy shook her head. Oh, I don't think that's silly at all. It's nice that you want to help ponies in need. I thought that little charity service you ran was really sweet. I sort of do something similar, only with animals instead of ponies. Suddenly the door to the room burst open and a white blur streaked its way across the room like lightning, past Lockwood, who was shoved to the side somewhat, and to the sofa. Rarity wasted no time in cradling Fluttershy in her forelegs and peppering the yellow Pegasus with excitement and concern. Oh my dear, Fluttershy, Rarity blurted. You're awake, darling. Oh, thank goodness you're alright, sweetie. Do you need anything? Are you warm enough? Are you comfortable, darling? Please tell me you're okay. I'm fine, Fluttershy peeped. Rarity, your mane is wet. Did you run straight here from your bath? Rarity paid no heed to the warning, so focused on devoting every fibre of her energy to Fluttershy's condition. You're not sore or anything. Do you need a pillow? Are you hungry? More blankets? Oh dear, that isn't it. Your poor delicate nose isn't used to the stark pungency of stallion sweat. Here, let me get this rank thing off. No, that's okay. I'd like to... Well, Lockwood said I could... Rarity brightened as she remembered the earlier offer. Oh, that's right. Mr. Lockwood said you could. Well, if that's what you want, darling, far be it from me to object. It is the most exquisite thing. Even if it does reek of... Oh, never mind. Thank you again, Mr. Rarity turned to thank Lockwood and was rather confused at his state of appearance. His face was a bright pink. His wings flared out to a full wingspan, and he wore a nervous grin that belied his true thoughts. Not a problem at all, he sputtered, fidgeting slightly and trying his best not to make any sudden movements. Rarity took a moment to put the pieces together. A normally very calm and collected stallion, suddenly extremely nervous and sputtering about like a colt that had just gotten his hoof caught in a cookie jar. His wings erect and... Oh, she thought. Oh, no. She turned a bright red and from her muzzle all the way down to her flank. Perhaps I should just leave you two alone, he said with a tug of his collar. Oh, that's okay, Fluttershy smiled. You don't have to. Out, Rarity blurted, starting to push the blushing stallion into the hall. Out, 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 out. Oh, I never expected such perversion from you. Why, if I had the same candor as Applejack all. Hey, wait. Hey, wait, you, one that barged in? Lockwood hazarded, despite looking as if he knew it was rather lame defence while he was being pushed rather unceremoniously into the hall. His wings clipped the door. Hey, watch those are sensitive. Not another word, Rarity scolded. The door slammed shut behind him. And it's not my fault you forgot your clothes, his voice called from the other side. Maybe not. Oh, of all the excuses. You can just wait in the hallway until I'm decent. Humph. And Rarity shut him out. Oh, the nerve. Such a sneaky tactic. And from a pony I did not really expect such things from it that. Not that I blame him for wanting to see my gorgeous figure, but really, in front of Rarity turned to Fluttershy. I do apologise that you had to witness that, darling. I'm sure the poor dear didn't mean anything by it, really. I do suppose I should have grabbed something to wear on my way out. But I just needed to see you. She raised her voice so that any pony outside from the room could hear her. But it is his fault for just standing there and staring like some hormone-addled school colt. Have you no shame? You didn't have to chase him out, Fluttershy said quietly, trying very hard to keep a very small smile off her face. I was enjoying... She noticed Rarity's suddenly arched eyebrow. His company. But be that as it may, darling, I just can't allow such... Rarity struggled for a word. Fluttershy took on a look of calculated innocence. Excitement? Debauchery! To take place in front of you, sweetie. Why, I imagine if he'd stood a while longer, we'd have to sterilise the room. A sensitive lady like you shouldn't have to see anything that candid. Allow me to get dressed, and I'll let him back in. Maybe by then he'll have calmed down a little. Rarity fussed with one of the spare blankets that had been provided but not been used. She dried her mane and coat and tail, then draped it delicately along her back. She knew it was odd to fuss about it since she was used to being around ponies in the nude back home, but Lockwood considered nudity to be a taboo of sorts, and as such she felt obligated to hold herself to higher standards. When she was satisfied that the not at all fashionable blanket would serve as a temporary covering, she opened the door and let him back in, but stood firm in the door for a moment. Rarity narrowed her eyes. Ahem. Lockwood quickly looked to his sides and saw that his wings were still slightly rigid. Right, Rarity rolled her eyes and let him in. Such to his relief. Fluttershy gave a tiny cough in acknowledgement of his predicament, which made him quickly tuck his wings as best he could in at his sides. He really wished he had his jacket right about now. Well then, with that little debacle behind us, Tick-Tock should be coming up soon with a nice hot bowl of stew Pewter made. Rarity said as she helped tuck Fluttershy better under her covers. If anything's as good as dinner was, you'll enjoy it a great deal, darling. And complimentary room service as well. How exquisite. It's like being in a little hotel. That sounds nice, Fluttershy nodded. I'm really hungry. And it looks like I've got perfect timing, Tick-Tock said from the doorway. Oh, goodness, Tick-Tock, Rarity jumped. How about a little warning next time you come into the room? Just about gave me a heart attack. It really is most unladylike to startle others in such a manner. Tick-Tock rolled her eyes. Yes, well, anyway. Stu's here, so let me through and I can... Rarity stopped her with a raised hoof. Her horn glowed dimly, lightly shrouding the bowl into her own magic cover to cover Tick-Tock's. Oh, no need for any of that, darling. Allow me to take that off your hoofs. You've done such You've done so much already, and certainly haven't had any time to rest yourself. So why don't you take a load off? Besides, my dear Fluttershy would much rather be tended by a familiar face. Isn't that right, darling? Well, I suppose, if that's okay with you, Miss Tick-Tock, Fluttershy squeaked. Far be it from me to argue that point, Tick-Tock shrugged. Frankly, I could use a bath. You're right. I dare say I've earned it. Here you are, then. Rarity graciously took the bowl of steaming hot stew, which had a smell that crinkled Rarity's nose. It was a rather pungent aroma, not unlike overcooked cabbage blended with radishes and too much garlic and too many onions. Though she could see none of the culprits in the stew itself, it looked a sickly brown colour with thin, soupy texture, loaded with what looked like off-black potato chunks and a stringy green leaf-like ingredient that reminded her of a wilted spinach. Did Fluttershy really have to eat this? She shook off the distraction. I hope you're ready to wait in line a while, Rarity said pointedly. Imagine my surprise when Twilight Sparkle was behind me in the queue. Surely by now she's taken advantage of my departure. Not at all a problem, of course, but a few of the others were even behind her. I'm surprised that some of the ponies are even still awake, apart from those I expected to see. And you did insist they all wait until morning to come see Fluttershy. Perhaps you should have let them come if you wanted to get in the bath sooner, She added with a smirk. That won't be any trouble, Tick-Tock said dismissively. I know a few ways to save some time in that regard, so don't worry about me. I'll leave you to your duties if you insist on handling it yourself. Night all. And do try to get some sleep yourselves, eh? And let her get some sleep, or you'll just delay her recovery even more, That won't be any trouble. Wait, did I just read that? Yeah. Of course. Good night, darling, and thank you again, Rarity called in a sing-song voice. As Tick-Tock left, Rarity quietly shut the door and started to trot over to Fluttershy until Lockwood sort of blocked her path. He didn't bar her way so much to make it known that he was definitely in the room, and didn't want to be ignored, though the gesture was without any kind of harmful intentions. Please, Rarity, allow me, he smiled. Beg pardon? Rarity blinked. I'll take it from here. You interrupted your bath or to rush down here, so I'll leave you to finish up while I... Rarity gave a sort of sarcastic chuckle. Aha, no need for that, dear. I'm here now, so I'll take care of it. You, though, you could certainly use some food in the bath. I wasn't kidding when I said your jacket reeks of, well, you. And did Mr. Pewter put some leftovers in the dining area for you, so you can help yourself to those? I highly recommend the magma berry salad. It is most exquisite. All very nice, I assume, but at the moment I'd rather make sure Fluttershy is well fed. She needs it the most, you understand. Lockwood nodded. I insist. You can go ahead and finish your business, and I promise this time that I'll avert my eyes. He added with a coy smirk. Rarity dismissively waved a hoof. Oh, but you've already done so much. Please, let me handle this. It's really no trouble at all. I wouldn't want to burden you with more... It's no burden at all. Please let... And besides, Miss Tick-Tock did not bring any hot pads or any of the sort. And it's an awfully hot bowl, see? Rarity insisted, hovering over the strong smell of stew under his nose. Lockwood's nose scrunched up as well. He coughed. I've dealt with worse. I can take care of it. Please, darling, I insist. No, really, allow me. Fluttershy retreated into the safety of her makeshift blanket fort. She hated it when ponies fought, and somehow the fact that they were fighting over her made it even worse. Even worse was that the last time she'd seen them both together, they'd seemed so cordial. What had happened while she was out? Hopefully not all of her friends were acting like this. Rarity suddenly turned to Fluttershy. Fluttershy, sweetie, wouldn't you rather your dearest friend Rarity see to it that you get a nice dinner? After all, good Mr. Lockwood here has already done so much. We wouldn't want to impose on him, would we? Fluttershy shied away a little from Rarity's pleading tone. She knew that tone, and she knew that it would be better to relent. She did want Rarity here, that was for certain, but she wasn't so sure she wanted Lockwood to leave just yet. Well, yes, I am. See, darling? Rarity said with a smug confidence. Go on then. Go on then, my good stallion. You can see her again in the morning. Get yourself some food and a good bath, yes? After all, it wouldn't do any of us any favours if you went around hungry and smelly, would it? Lockwood sighed. Yes, all right. He trotted over to Fluttershy and gave her a soft pat on the back. There wasn't any pain there anymore, Fluttershy acknowledged. You rest easy there, okay, Fluttershy? It would make me feel awful if you didn't recover. Rarity will take good care of you. I know she will, Fluttershy smiled. And thank you again for everything. It was my pleasure, he bowed. He cantered over to the hallway. Well then, off I go. Good night, ladies. I'm glad all of this is going to be behind us. I have a headache the size of a bleeding moon. I ache in places I don't even know I had. And nothing is going smoothly at all. The sooner I can get my group across the mountains into the Hope's Point, the better. I've had all I can bloody well take. Tick-Tock lounged lazily on a cozy sofa, legs stretched out as she relaxed for the first time in what felt like weeks. But she knew it had just been under 48 hours. She'd undressed now, wearing a white cotton bathrobe, while the rest of her clothes were being tended to by Pewter, who bruised himself using his magic to clean, straighten and mend them. Pewter kept a steady voice. You look like you've been through hell, Tick-Tock. I'm glad your crazy plans didn't get any pony killed. Your time limit doesn't seem strict enough to risk Redblade. Even for you. What's the big rush for, anyway? Tick-Tock sighed. You sound like Sparkle and Dash. Why this and why that? And you almost got us bloody killed, and the list just goes on and on. It's not my fault I seem to be on some kind of bad luck streak lately. And they've been on about how much of a bloody idiot I am, but it's not my fault. Smart ponies, Pewter smirked. Tick-Tock threw a pillow at him, hitting him square in the face. He laughed it off, spitting out a few feathers that had come loose. All kidding aside, Tick-Tock, really, why in Equestria were you thinking? Redblade is difficult enough to traverse with one pony, let alone two, but 9? Sounds to me like to overestimated yourself again. You should count yourself lucky that Miss Sparkle is strong enough with her magic that she could even... That's the entire reason I even attempted it, Tick-Tock interrupted. You don't think I'm mental enough to try going that route if I wasn't confident we couldn't even get through, do you? Pewter's decided silence made Tick-Tock frown, but she didn't keep it up for long. Breaking into a very tiny grin that she could see had made her relax. She rolled her eyes. I know I'm dumb enough to try a lot of things, Pewter, but that isn't one of them. I'm telling you. Everything was going just swimmingly until that damn earthquake. How could I have predicted that? You tell me. I'm just a little hurt you were going to skip my little checkpoint in order to get home, Pewter said with a mock pout. Tick-Tock chuckled lightly. Oh, I would have stopped on my way back, Pewter. No need to get all mopey on me. And knock off the puppy eyes, yeah? That trick doesn't work on me. You know that. He lifted her sweater vest over to a nearby chair and laid it out neatly, followed by her undershirt and bow tie. All of them looked like they were good as new, Pewter said triumphantly. Difficult work, but I think you'll find I did a better job than last time. I'm getting better at sewing, I think. I must say, though, I'm rather glad you didn't have to fix too many of your group's outfits. That any of them besides yourself even wanted anything repaired is beyond me. That stupid law. I know, I told them. But some of them insist that I've had it up to here with all the fights over stupid rubbish that I'll just let them do what they bloody want. But honestly, I can't blame Flutter for wanting a few touch-ups. He was born and raised under that kind of social stigma, so it must be a hard habit to break. And you only got out of fixing anything of Lockwood's because that jacket of his is awfully durable. Not that he's going to be wearing it much for a few days. I'm more surprised that more of the girls didn't want their stuff fixed up. Just that Rarity one. Between you and me, though, I don't think she's much going to like it. Whoever did the stitch work on that dress of hers was some sort of master. It's like the dress is made for a few different dresses entirely, and they were just sewed them together. But those other 6 you said you met en route weren't even wearing any clothes to begin with, so I suppose at least some members of your little travelling party have some common sense not to bother with it. You make us sound like bleeding hypocrites, Tick-Tock smirked. Well, with us 2 wearing clothes and all, but telling everybody else they don't need to. Yes, well, if they were wearing anything practical, I might argue that the point. But all these outfits looked more designed for fashion. I must thank your friends for leaving the stuff they didn't want here, though. The fabrics, they will come in handy for mixing up a few things here and there. Your own clothes notwithstanding. Weren't they all raised under that social stigma as well? Strikes me odd that they'd give up their clothes while Fluttershy and Lockwood won't give up theirs. Well, no, Tick-Tock hesitated. They're not exactly from around here, you understand. It's a long story. Let's just keep it simple and leave it at that, eh? I really don't feel up to explaining it. No problem, Pewter smirked. I assume this is all official Chronomancer business, then? Trying to keep it all hush-hush? Not that it matters much to me. All that timey-wimey stuff goes right over my head. Always has, always will. At least I understand it better than my father did. Well, this particular job might just make you reconsider what counts as complicated. So yes, let's just leave it alone. This whole week has just been an absolute bleeding nightmare. I think I've rubbed elbows with death a few too many times for my taste. So many I wouldn't be surprised if I'm on a list of his somewhere that keeps track of that sort of thing. Thanks for stars for that. I'm glad to see you're okay, Tick-Tock. Pewter frowned. I didn't think your duties usually included that much danger. Is everything working out okay? You're usually not this ruffled about work. Normally, no. I don't deal with much. Just your typically crossing the wastelands dangers. Nothing you don't do on a daily basis. But ever since those 6... never mind. Let's just say that I've had a rough week. And the sooner I get those girls to Utopia and out of my hair, the better I'll be. You seemed awfully concerned about them for some pony that's acting like they just want to be rid of them. I take it they're not your friends? Tick-Tock huffed. Friends? Right. A few of them are friendly enough. Fluttershy, for example, and Pinkie Pie, even if she's a tad on the mental side. I think Applejack might still have some faith in me, but I doubt it. Rainbow Dash hates everything about me. Sparkle and I don't see eye to eye on almost anything. And after that bloody gargantuan situation, I doubt I'm much in Rarity's good graces. She shook her head. But what does it matter? As soon as I get them all to Utopia and handle all this, I can put it all behind me. I'm going to need a nice long vacation after that. If I even get to keep my bloody job, that is. Oh? Every damn thing about this past week has been loaded with one protocol violation after another. I won't be surprised if I get back home and find a nice fat pink slip on my door. Congratulations, it will read. You totally buggered up, enjoy your sacking. If I still have a job when I'm through, I'll be bloody surprised. I wish you the best of luck then, in all the endeavours, he smiled. I enjoy your visits, Tick-Tock, as random and infrequent as they are, but I don't like seeing you upset. You're usually a lot less grumpy. My father always liked your fine spirit. Oh, there's a surprise. Your father always did like me better anyway. Tick-Tock teased. It's not my fault you're such a softy. Maybe when you grow up and become a real stallion, the old man will give you the respect you deserve, eh? It must be hard, knowing you always play second fiddle to a little filly like me. Ha! He changed his tune when I killed my first gargantuan, I tell you that. Pewter teased right back. Unlike some mares in present company, who still, to this day, haven't accomplished such a feat. You're too squeamish, Tick-Tock. Always have been. Well, I've never had to resort to more lethal methods to get away from the blasted things. I've always had my own technique of escaping unharmed. And that's why you'll never get one of those bloody needles anywhere near me. I know you can't say much for yourself. You must be immune to their venom by now. With how many times you've been stung, I think I've been keeping a tally of it. Speaking of, he said with a confused expression, I searched through your pockets while fixing your vest, and I haven't seen you pull it out either. Where's your little pocket watch? You're always fiddling with the thing. I thought it was work-related equipment, or am I wrong? Tick-Tock buried her head in her hoofs. Ugh, don't remind me. I'd bet a million bits that I knew if I had my timekeeper, the whole journey would have been almost done by now. We'd probably be past the last stretch of Red Blade. Just a few miles to go before the home stretch. But no, we're taking the wrong route that's gonna take us bloody, well, twice as long. All because of a bit of damn bad luck and because I lost my only piece of gear like a stupid little foal. I'm damn near bloody useless without the thing. I know that much now. Come on now, Tick-Tock. You know you're not. I am, okay? Tick-Tock blurted, tears beginning to form in her eyes. Just ask the mares downstairs. I totally screw up without it. I can't read geothermal measurements accurately. I can't detect seismic anomalies that gargantuans create. I can't even bloody well probably keep track of our magical output. Without my timekeeper, I'm just a bleeding tour guide. A tour guide with an outdated map and less than stellar emergency capacity who may as well still just have handed them a damn map and let them go off on their own. She sniffed gingerly. I'm such an idiot. I should have never set the bloody thing down. Prudo frowned deeply, troubled by the sight of his closest friend in such dire straits. He remained silent a long moment. Then an idea came to him that made him remember something, and he hastily rushed over to his desk. Tick-Tock eyed him with a strange curiosity as he fumbled through a multitude of objects. A few bits of metal ore, some packets of seeds, a pocket-sized pickaxe and that matched his cutie mark, down to everything but the colours. A small glass case that he did not haphazardly toss but set aside carefully down. Finally, he came to what he was searching for, a tiny wooden case, not much larger than a slice of bread. He brought it over to the sofa with a coy grin on his face. Tick-Tock wasn't used to seeing him in such an excitable mood, and was genuinely curious why. What's got you all chipper for? She asked, wiping her eyes on her bathrobe. You made a mess of your room, you dumb git. I remembered something, he said, in a brief, whimsical manner. I know it's not much, but, well, take a look. He opened the case. Tick-Tock's eyes widened, and her jaw dropped a good couple of inches. Is that what I... Inside, laid neatly and well-kept piece of dark crimson silk, sat a tiny golden pocket watch that did not even fill up the case it was in. It was very plain, only a few inches around, and it looked very, very old, at least a century or so, if not more. It was covered in small scratches and crude cuts that showed the once shiny but now quite dim silvery metal